Okay. Good afternoon, class. Ayun. Okay. Medyo hindi pa nakaset up yung camera ko. Okay lang ba? Hindi mo na ako mag-camera ngayon. yung camera, yung setup pa ng camera, hindi ko naayos. Okay. So, hindi mo na ako mag-camera ngayon ha. For today lang naman. Okay. Hindi ko nakaset up ka, ang dilim ba, di ba? So, ang ano naman niya kung madilim lang yun ako. Pero kita niyo ba yung screen ko? Are you able to see the screen? Okay, so good. Okay, so we've been having some problems last week. Okay, with regards to our supposed meeting. But today, for this week, we will start now with we will start to continue with what we have left off from last week. So my target is for us to finish this first topic. Okay. And for the next 3 weeks, we'll finish with topic number 2. Okay, so we expect that we will have synchronous meetings every time. Okay, unless otherwise we will announce that there will be no synchronous meeting. Okay, so pero it's likely that we will have synchronous meeting every meeting from now on. Okay, just to pick up those things that we have that we were able to miss last time. Okay, so from what I remember, okay, are we done with this polar form? Saan tayo tapos last time? If you can remember. Ayun. Saan tayo natapos last time? Wala nakaalala. Sige, habang inaalala nyo kung nasan tayo, subukan kong i-set up yung camera ko. Mabilisan na. Anyone? Pakialala naman kung saan tayo natapos last time.
Sir, based po sa notes ko po, sir, nakapag-polar form po tayo.
Nakapag-polar form tayo. So, if you can remember, we have already discussed, naalala ko nga rin, tapos na ako dito sa polar form. So, we were able to discuss itong part wherein we can change or we can convert. Okay, we can convert your number. Say for example, z equals a plus jd, okay, or a plus bi, sorry, plus bi, okay, into polar form as r bar angle theta, okay, where we can compute for r as the square root of a squared plus b squared, okay, and theta as the arctangent of b over a. But we have some restrictions, okay, with regards dun sa ating we have put some restrictions on your theta. That is, your theta should be an angle between negative 180, it should be less than 100 or greater than 180 degrees, okay, or less than and equal to 180 degrees, okay. So which means that we are looking at your angle to be this way. So we will measure your angle, okay, as positive if we are measuring it from here to here. So if your if your number is located on the first or second quadrant, okay, we expect that the angle is positive, okay, and is less than 100 or equal to, pwede rin siya maging equal to 180 degrees. Okay? Is that clear? Okay. And then, if your number or if your complex number is located on the third, okay, or fourth quadrant, okay, we will measure your angle clockwise, okay, and it should be measured as negative, okay, and that angle should be uh, greater than negative 180 degrees. Of course, we will not have your angle to be equal to negative 180 degrees. Okay? We, we would not make the angle uh, equal to negative 180 degrees because instead of actually saying that your angle is negative 180 degrees, okay, it should be equal to 180 degrees. Naintindihan ba yan? Yan, tingnan na siya. Yan. Yan. Kita nyo na yung camera ko. Okay. So, ayun. Again, if our number is between it is located on the first or second quadrant, your angle is positive and is measured less than or equal to 180 degrees. And if your number is located on the third or fourth quadrant, okay, your angle should be measured negative and should be greater than 180 degrees. Okay? And of course, this range, okay, this range of your number between negative 180 degrees and positive 180 degrees, okay, this range, okay, we will call this as the principal range of your angle or of your argument, okay. So we have here the principal value of the angle denoted as the arg or ARG for argument. Okay, we also call the angle. Okay, we also call the angle as the argument. Okay, and is denoted. Sorry, and is denoted as ARG. Okay, of the number Z. Okay, so now the principal range, okay, is denoted using the same notation. It's just that your A should now be represented by an uppercase A here. Okay. So when we say that we want the argument of the number Z, okay, taking note that this is the lowercase a, okay, this pertains to an angle or any angle, okay, that is not within, that may be or maybe not within this range. Okay? So, kapag ganito yung notation ninyo, okay, if your notation is written something like this, okay, your angle or what angle you're looking for is any angle, okay, that may or may not be within this range. Okay? But if your angle, if your notation is written as this one, okay, like this one, again with an uppercase A here, okay, we mean this to be an angle that is specifically within this range. Okay? Is that clear? Okay. So, now, it, again, we were able to talk about last time. Okay, we were able to talk about last time. Um, that angle, okay, that angle may be something like, for example, um, ito siya, no? Ayan. So, if your number is if this is your number Z, say for example, this is 3 plus 4i, okay, and that is 3 plus 4i, what would be your here? What would be the length of this line or of this modulus?
5 units po, sir.
So this would be 5 units. Okay, very good. So R would be 5 units. Now, this angle, okay, what's the principal value of that angle? It should be computed as the arc tangent of 4 over 3. Should be computed as the arc tangent of 4 over 3. And this would be equal roughly to
Approximately 53 degrees po, sir.
53 degrees. Okay. But take note, okay, take note. So this is the principal angle. Okay, we call this as the principal argument of Z. Okay. But take note that if you actually add, what is 53 degrees plus 360 degrees? That's around 311, 413 degrees, right? Is that correct? Okay. So we can also say that that angle, okay, is also equal to 413 degrees. But take note, okay, take note that this is not a principal or within the principal range. Okay? So we can just simply refer to this as the argument of Z with with a smaller with a lowercase a. Okay, instead of using the uppercase a. Okay, is that clear? There's a difference between these two notation. Okay. Now, we also can, refer to this as this one, the argument of Z. So either you use this or you use this, that's okay. As long as this is on the principal range. Okay? And again, that principal range is negative 180 degrees and positive 180 degrees. Or in terms of radians, that would be negative pi, okay, pi, and positive pi radians. Okay? So, for you not to be confused with this one, okay, for you not to be confused with this one, always remember that you need to have the sense of where the number is in your Cartesian plane. Okay, you should have the sense of whether it is on quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, or quadrant 4. Okay, and again, if it is on quadrant 1 or quadrant 2, your angle should be between it should be less than 180 degrees. Just to be clear here, it should be between 0 and 180 degrees. Okay? Is that clear? And if it is on the third or fourth quadrant, it should be between 0 and negative 180 degrees and 0. Okay? But take note that I am not using the equal sign here. Because if it is 0, then you should be locating it here. And it is 180, it should be locating here. But it should not be written as negative 180 degrees. Okay? Kumbaga, parang hindi tayo magkakaroon ng number, or we cannot have a number written as, say, for example, for bar angle, negative 180 degrees. Rather, you should write this as for bar angle, 180 degrees. And by the way, in rectangular form, what is for bar angle 180 degrees? In rectangular form.
-4 lang po.
That's negative 4 plus 0i. Or as your classmate said, sino nagsabi nun? Sorry, hindi ko na-track. Ayan, kung sino man nagsabi nun, it's negative 4. Simply negative 4. Okay? So, that means that if your number is purely a negative number, okay, we expect that the angle should be 180 degrees. Okay? If it's a purely negative number. If it's a purely positive number, say 4, okay, say 4, what would be its equivalent in polar form? When you locate the number 4 in your Cartesian plane, 4 means 4 means in rectangular form. It's 4 plus 0i. Okay? So therefore, what should be its polar form? You can locate your 4 here. Because 4 plus 0i represents the coordinate 4, 0. Correct? So what should be its polar form here? Or what would be its equivalent polar form? Anyone? Wala. Tingnan niyo tong point na to. Ano yung haba nito? Gaano kahaba ito? Yan, gaano kahaba yung line na yan? At ano yung angle na ginagawa niyo with the x-axis?
For angle bar 0 po.
So this simply for bar angle, bar 0. For angle 0 degrees. For bar angle 0 degrees. Diba? Now how about this? If I have a number, say, this one. Ito. This is at 0, 4. The coordinate at 0, 4. What is the number in rectangular form first?
Zero plus 4G.
This is 0 plus 4J or 4I. Correct? Or simply 4I. So which means this is a purely imaginary number. Now, what would be its equivalent rectangular polar form? How would you write this number in polar form?
4 bar angle 90.
This is 4 bar angle 90 degrees. Simply because the length of the line of this one is 4. Okay, and this angle is simply 90 degrees. Okay? So, Actually, more than you using the formula. Okay, more than you using the formulas as presented here, as were presented here in this part. Okay, more than you using those extensively. Okay, baka mas practical, or it might be more practical for you to actually locate or imagine the location of the point or of the number on a Cartesian plane, and then from there deduce the location. Okay, for example, bigyan natin kayo ng number like this one. Ano ito? -1 plus -j, or -1 minus j, or -1 minus I in terms of the I notation. Okay. First question. At what quadrant is that number located?
Third po.
At the third quadrant. Because z equals -1 minus I corresponds to what coordinate? Or what point? Okay.
-1 and -1 po.
It's -1 and -1. Very good. Okay. So obviously, this is located on this third quadrant. Say for example here. So this is -1 and this is -1. Okay. So you have this now as your point. Now, what you would do is you find then how long is this one? Okay, how long is this ano? Which in which case that you are now looking for its magnitude. Okay, you're now looking for r. Okay, and that should give you a triangle something like this one. The length of this is 1, the length of this is 1. So by Pythagorean theorem, obviously, you don't really have to remember the formula, but you would know from this drawing or from this part that you would know how to find the length of this one if you know how long is this and how long is this. So that should give you r as
Square root of 2.
square root of 2. And that should come from square root of 1 square plus 1 square. That's square root of 2. Now, how about this angle? Okay. Again, since this is in the third quadrant, we measure the angle from the positive, okay, from the positive x-axis, and then clockwise, since this is on the third. Remember this? Negative, or kung nasa third quadrant siya, we measure the angle clockwise, okay, and then from here. So that our angle would be measured negative. Right? So we are trying to find this angle. Okay. Now, you might be using, or you might be measuring the angle, or you might be computing the angle using the formula given to you. We should give you as arctangent of b over a, and your b here is -1. Okay, this one, you're looking for the y coordinate over the x coordinate. So you'd be computing this as -1 over the arctangent of -1 over -1. Anong lalabas dyan?
45 po.
45 degrees. Is this a correct angle? From what you are looking here, is this a correct angle?
Hindi po.
Obviously, it's not.
Hindi po.
Good. That's the thing. That's the thing that I am pointing out here. The thing is that you might be using the formula, the use of the formula, as plain as the formula is presented. You might be looking at the wrong thing, and you might be computing for the wrong number. Okay. My suggestion is this. First, disregard all the signs. Just first of all, locate where the point is locate what quadrant is the point located. So in this case, this is the third quadrant. Okay. Second is disregard the signs of all the numbers. So simply compute for this angle. Because if you actually don't have any signs here, if you don't have any signs here in this case, pag wala tong mga sign, okay, you're simply computing the first quadrant angle. So your result, kapag wala kasing sign ito, itong V nyo tsaka yung A nyo, ang result ng tangent nyo is between 0 hanggang 90. Or less than 90. If you don't have any signs in A and in B. Okay? What happens is that if yung negative 1 tsaka negative 1 nyo kasi, nag-cancel out yung signs nila because you're dividing two numbers that are negative. Therefore, iti-treat ito as positive. Therefore, if you compute the arctangent of a positive number, the answer would be between 0 and 90. Okay? So, ang gawin natin is, let's make all of this as positive. And obviously, you will be computing an angle that is between 0 and 90. But take note that you would be computing this angle. Okay? And since you're looking for this angle, what do we do?
Minus po sa 360
360?
or 180 po. O
180. Because we're talking about this angle lang. This one to here. Yun lang yung pinag-uusapan natin. So this angle din, ito. Let's use a different one. Ito, from here to here, is simply 180 degrees minus 45 degrees. Itong angle na to. So therefore, that angle is 135 degrees. And then, as we have established from this one, since we're measuring your angle in a clockwise sense, this angle should be negative.
Negative.
Yeah. So therefore, yung negative 1 minus I in rectangular form should be written as square root of 2 bar angle negative 135 degrees. Is that clear? Okay, sige. Put down your hands. Now, I have parang binalikan ko itong idea to because yung next lesson natin is very related to that one. Okay? That's very related to that one. In here, what was discussed here was how to multiply and divide numbers, okay, using the polar form. But I believe I discussed that last time. I was able to discuss this last time. That is, when you multiply two numbers in polar form, you have to multiply the magnitudes and add the angles. Okay. While if you're doing this, if you would be doing division in polar form, you have to divide the magnitudes and subtract the angles. Okay. Na alam ko na discuss ito last time. Okay. But I did review this part because the next part of our lesson, okay, the next part of our lesson would be this exponential form, okay, would be related to that to that topic, related to dun sa okay. Pero bago tayo magpunta sa exponential form, let's discuss muna the integer power. Okay. So the integer power of complex number z, okay, which is z raised to n. Okay. That is, we will try now to raise your complex number z, okay, into a certain integer power. Okay. So by induction, okay, galing dito, if you actually come from here, from this part, okay, by induction, we will be able to prove that when you raise z to a certain number, that is, we take note that z1 times z2 in polar form, that is r1 times r2, okay, bar angle of theta 1 plus theta 2. Yan yung multiplication of two numbers. Okay, but what if yung Z1 ninyo is actually equal to Z2. Which is, we will let that equal to Z. So that means Z1 times Z2 is actually Z squared. Tama? Yeah. So if we assume, okay, if we assume that Z1 and Z2 are equal, and that will be equal to Z, then Z1 times Z2 is actually Z squared. Now what happens here? Okay. Yung R1 tsaka R2 nyo, that would be equal. So that should be simply written as R squared. Okay. And then yung theta 1 nyo tsaka yung theta 2 nyo, which again, should be equal. Kasi nga, equal to dalawang to. That should be written simply as 2 theta. Okay? And if you actually, by induction, okay, if you actually expand this idea into n, or if you multiply this thing n times, then you would have the following. You would have the following, the following result. Okay. So if you actually let r or the magnitude equal to 1, okay, this part, okay, with r equals to 1 becomes this. Okay, and this is what we call the De Moivre's formula. We will answer De Moivre. This is a French. This is a French mathematician. Okay, this is named after a French mathematician. So De Moivre's. Alam niyo pag French, medyo maraming silent letters kapag ano. Okay, so we call this as the De Moivre's formula. Okay, so to apply the De Moivre's formula, okay, you first convert your number. Okay, you first convert your number into polar form. Okay, and then what seems to be a distribution of exponent, pero this is not distribution. This is technically not distribution. Okay, but you can actually remember it that way. Okay, that is yung n natin dito, the power of this is actually used to multiply the angle. Okay, you can actually use to multiply that angle. Okay, and then again, if that angle is greater than 180 degrees, we need to reduce it back to the principal form or to the principal range, or to an angle within the principal range. Okay, let's try to have something like this. Okay, 3 plus J4 or 3 plus 4i plus 4i cube. Okay, let us first convert this to rectangular form. I mean to polar form. I mean, hindi pala yan. Ito lang. Itong 3 plus 4i, let us convert this to polar form. So what is this number in polar form?
Five bar angle 53.
This is 5 bar angle 53 point
13 po.
Degrees of
53 point. Sorry, I'm reading something.
53.13 degrees.
13 degrees. Okay. There. O kaya, in terms of cosine and sine, that should be 5 times cosine of 53.13 degrees plus j or I sine 53.13 degrees. Okay? Now, from there, let us apply yung De Morgan's formula. Okay? So that is since we need to uh, in this problem, what we have is to raise this number by a power of 3. Okay? So we will now have this as 5 times cosine of 53.13 degrees plus j sine 53.13 degrees cube. Okay? And accordingly, first, since this is naka-multiply, we can use yung distribution of the exponents. So we simply have 5 cube, okay, times cosine of 53.13 degrees plus j sine of 53.13 degrees cube. Now, I'll continue it here, no? Okay. 5 cube is 125. Okay. And then, on this part, on this factor, we can now apply yung De Morgan's formula. Okay, we can apply the De Morgan's formula, which simply states that we have to multiply these angles by 3, which is the power here. So you would have something like cosine of 53.13 cosine of 53.13 degrees times 3, okay, plus j sine of 53.13 degrees times 3, okay, which should result to what number? What is 53.13 degrees times 3?
Point 13 po yun, sir.
53.13.
159.39 po.
That's 159.39.
39.
Alright. But is this number within the principal range? Is this number between, is this angle, because we're talking about angle here, is this number between 180 degrees and positive 180 degrees? Is this number within this range? So this is simply 159.39 degrees plus j sine 159.39 degrees. And then let's convert this back. Let's convert that back to to rectangular form. What is this number in rectangular form? What is 125 cosine of 159.39 degrees?
Negative 117 po.
Negative 117. And then the other side, or the other term, what's 125 sine?
Plus 44i po. IJ.
So tama 'tong sagot na to. Is that correct?
Opo, sir.
Okay, sabi nyo ha. Sige. So there. Ayun. So that's how we apply the De Morgan's formula. Okay. Now, how about now? In this case kasi, we are getting the power, okay? Getting the power of z when z is raised to an integer power. That is if your n is integer. Now, in another case, what if our n now is actually a rational number, not an integer, but a rational number? Okay, or a fractional, or a fraction instead. Instead na siya ay whole integer number, we have now your n to be fractional. Okay, so how do we find that? Okay, we can still apply. Okay, we can still apply for the De Morgan's formula, but in this case, take note that if you are looking, say for example, the square root of z, for example, if you're looking for square root of z, we are actually looking for two values. Halimbawa, when you have square root of 4, there are two answers that would actually satisfy this answer. That is, positive 2 at saka negative 2. Okay, anong ibig sabihin ko doon? Na dalawa yung sagot niya. Take note that the problem of root finding, okay, is actually an answer sa ganito. Say for example, you have x squared equals 4. Okay? Ito yung problem na sinasolve natin na ito yung magiging operation. That is what I am talking about. The problem is that you have x squared equals 4. And take note that there will be two values that can be substituted here for x that would satisfy this equation. That is, if you actually put positive 2 square, that should be equal to 4. Tama? Nawala ba yung share screen ko?
Okay na po pala, sir.
Ayan. So, ayan. Is this correct? Positive 2 square is 4. Okay. And in the same manner, you have negative 2 square equals 4. Is that correct? Okay. So, that is what I mean with this one. Pag umahanap kayo ng square root, there will be two answers. In the same manner, if you're actually looking for cube root of z, you're actually looking for three values that would satisfy this. Okay? That is, we are looking for, say for example, x cubed, okay, equals z. Then by this premise, there are actually three values or three numbers that if you substitute for x there, okay, this equation would be satisfied. Okay? Is that clear? Okay. So, ito na, binigyan natin isang example. X squared equals negative 4. So, dalawa siya. Negative 2 tsaka negative 2. Nakita natin, dalawa talaga yung sagot. We can actually give another example for this one. Pero this would actually broaden your understanding now of these roots. Say for example, you have x cubed equals 8. Say say, for example, we have x cubed equals 8. Now, as we said, there will be three numbers that would satisfy x here, or that would satisfy this equation. Okay? So, one of which is positive 2. Okay, if you actually have x equals 2 there, okay, then we can be sure that 2 cubed, 2 raised to 3 is actually 8. Is that correct? Okay. Now the thing is, what are the other two numbers? Ano yung other two numbers at ano? Okay. When we stated that number or that premise na kapag naghanap tayo, if you actually look for the nth root or for example, the square root of a number, we are actually looking for two answers. Or if you're looking for the cube root, okay, of a number, we're actually looking for three numbers. Yung three numbers na yun does not necessarily mean that all of them are real. Okay? Actually, the numbers or the answers or the roots can actually be real or complex. Okay? It just so happened that in this case, the numbers are both real numbers. That is, yung isa positive 2, yung isa negative 2. Okay? Pero in this case, the other two numbers are actually not real numbers. The other two numbers are actually complex numbers. So one of them is 2, but the other two numbers are complex. So how do we find those two complex numbers? Okay? Ito ang gagawin natin. Wait lang ha. Ito, gawin natin board muna. Okay. So, as I said, I am looking for our problem is x cubed. Okay. Okay. Our problem is x cubed equals 8. Okay. So, to solve this, we are actually looking for the cube root of 8. Okay? Is that clear? Okay. So as I said, we are looking for three values of x here. We have x equals, we have x1, x2, and x3. Okay. So one of which is actually 2. Nalaman natin yan. Madali lang naman hanapin niya kasi we can actually say that 2 cubed equals 3. Okay? Ay, sorry. 2 cubed equals 8 pala. Okay? Now, how do we find the other two? Or the other two, these two? Okay. And we were able to determine that these two are complex numbers. Okay. I would assure you that those two numbers are actually complex numbers. Okay. So, how do we find them? We find them using this one. Using this variation of the De Morgan's formula, okay, in which we will use this to find so this is your De Morgan's formula. For finding roots. Alright, we use this to find the roots. So how do we use this? Okay, first, you convert z to polar form. Kaya meron kayong R at saka theta dito eh. Okay, you have R at saka theta there. Okay, now, N here is the end truth. Okay, your N here is the end truth. And then your K here, okay, K is a number from 0, 1, 2, until you reach N minus 1. Okay? So K there, okay, evolves from 0, and then 1, and then 2, until you reach the number N minus 1. Now, this is pi. If you are looking for radian angle, and that would be 180 degrees. Okay, another version of this formula for ano is n root of r times cosine of theta plus 360k degrees divided by n. Okay, plus j sine of theta plus 360k degrees over n. If you are in degrees. Okay? So, ganito gagawin natin in this case. If you're looking for cube root of 8, or basically this is cube root of 8 plus 0i. Okay? And what is 8 plus 0i in polar form? Sige, okay lang ka mo. Recorded naman eh. So, sige. What is 8 plus 0i in rectangular form, in polar form, I mean?
Negative 8.
8 plus 0i, ah. Anong coordinate associated dito? Saan natin i-locate yung point na to?
Sa x-axis po, positive
X.
x-axis, 8, 0.
8-0. So, ano yung polar form niya? 8-0, ito yun eh. Yun yung 8-0. So, what's the polar form of this one?
8 bar angle 0 po.
8 bar angle 0 degrees. Ayun siya yun. Okay, which means, using the De Moivre's formula, your R here is 8. Okay, your R here is 8. And your angle here, this theta, is 0. And since we express this in terms of degrees, so we will use this formula instead, itong 360k, instead of 2 pi k. Okay, so ito. Now, your k now, okay, since you're looking for cube root of 8, your k would be from 0, 1, and 2. 2 here being n minus 1, because your n here is 3. Take note that your n is 3. So therefore, yung n minus 1 nyo is 2. That's why your k would evolve from 0, and then 1, and then 2. Is that clear? Mga dalawa lang nakakuha. Bitin ko Your problem is cube root of 8. Okay, your problem is cube root of 8. So you identify first yung mga kailangan nyo dito sa formula ninyo. And this one, okay, is 3. Okay? For you to find R and theta, okay, for you to find R and theta, you need to convert this one, okay, the radicand, okay, into polar form. So your polar form, 8 plus, or your rectangular form is 8 plus 0i, is basically 8 bar angle of 0 degrees in polar form. So that gives you R, okay, that gives you your R as 8 and your theta as 0 degrees. Now, yung K natin ngayon, we said that K would be a number, okay, from 0, okay, to 1, to 2, until you reach n minus 1. Your n here is 3. So n minus 1 is 2. That is why your K would have only 0, 1, and 2. Ang gagawin kasi natin is iisa-isahin natin yung K, isa-substitute dito. With all other things given as this, and this. So since ang meron tayong K as 0, 1, and 2, we now have 3 values. We will be able to get 3 values. Okay, ganito na rin siya sa simulan. We start with K equals 0. Okay? Your cube root of 8, okay, is then cube root of R, which in this case 8, okay, times cosine of theta, which is 0, okay, plus 360 times 0. Kasi yung K natin is 0. Okay? Divided by N, which is 3. Plus J sine of 0 plus 360 times 0 divided by 3. Nasundan yung formula? Okay. Now, to what value does this evaluate to? Obviously, this one is 0. So, this is cosine of 0. What is cosine of 0?
1 po.
1. And this is obviously sine of 0. So, what is sine of 0?
0.
That will be 0, right? So, therefore, this evaluates to, again, cube root of 8. Yung real part nito, yung cube root of 8 is basically 2. Okay? Times, this is, cosine of 0 is 1, plus, this is sine of 0 is 0. So, this is J, 0. So, that should give you 2. And that's the first root. Okay, that will be the first root. Okay? So, that is your x1. Next, we will now have K equals 1. Have your K equals 1. So your cube root of 8, okay, is basically cube root of R, okay, times cosine of 0 plus 360 times 1, okay, divided by 3. Plus J sine of 0 plus 360 times 1 divided by 3. Okay, ano to? This is cosine of 0 plus 360 divided by 3. So this is basically 360 divided by 3, or cosine of 120. What is cosine of 120?
Negative 1 na po.
Okay? So lalabas doon, or we now have again, cube root of 8 is 2. And then what is cosine of 120?
Negative 1 na po.
Negative 1. What is sine of 120?
Square root of 3 over 2.
Positive.
Apo.
Okay. Ano ngayon to? This is negative 2. Okay. Plus j square root of 3. That's the second root. Okay? Mamaya check natin yan kung tama. When k equals 2, okay, this is cube root of 8 equals, okay, the third root is cube root of r, okay, times cosine of 0, that's theta, plus 360 times 2 divided by 3. Okay, plus j sine of theta plus 360 times 2 divided by 3. Okay. Ano yung value nito? Ano? What's the value of this? This 120, 240? Tama? Is that correct? 60 times 2 divided by 3. That's 240. Okay, and then what is cosine of 240?
Negative 1 up po.
That is still cube root of r is still 2. Okay? And then cosine of 240 is still negative 1. Tama?
1 half.
1 half? Check nga.
Negative 1 up sa akin.
Tama ba yan? Negative 1 half?
Opo, sir.
Opo, sir.
One half.
Yes po.
Tama, 240 ito. Okay, ako naman yung mali.
Sir, trinay ko din po, sir. Yung 0 plus 360 times 2 over 3 po.
Opo, sir.
Negative 1 up din po.
Pero ito tama to na 1 to. Ito naman yung check natin.
Yan po, sir.
Negative
Dapat
one
po
half, sir.
negative 1 half
Negative
po.
1 up po.
Sir.
Ito negative 1 half to.
Opo, sir.
Yun, malito na tayo
Opo.
kanina. So, this is... Ito pala yung mali. Okay. So, this is negative 1 half.
Opo.
Plus,
Square root of 3 over 2.
J
Positive po.
3 over 2.
Opo.
Okay, tama to.
Opo, sir. Tama.
So, therefore, this is instead... Ba't yung sinasabi na mali pala yung kanina? This is negative 1. Tama? It's negative 1 plus j square root of 3. Okay. Let's continue here. So this is instead 2, the square root of that's cube root of r times negative 1 half. And then what is this?
Negative square root of 3 over 2.
Square root of 3 over 2. Okay? That should give us what? This one times this one is negative 1. Okay? Minus j square root of 3.
Square root of
Okay? Ito nga yung sinasabi ko. So there are 3 roots now. We were able to identify 3 roots. The first root is 2. The second root is negative 1. Negative 1 plus j cube root of square root of 2, 3. Okay? And then the third root is negative 1 minus j square root of 3. Okay. Madali niyo identify that cube root, that 2 raised to 3, okay, it would be easy to check that 2 raised to 3 is 8. Okay, but can you actually verify that negative 1 plus j square root of 3 raised to 3 is actually 8? So, paano ba natin i-verify that negative 1 plus j square root of 3 is negative 1 plus j square root of 3 raised to 3 is actually equal to 8? Okay, let us first convert this to polar form. What is negative 1 plus j square root of 3 in polar form? Negative 1 plus
2 bar angle 120.
that's 2 bar angle. Ano siya? 1
120 po.
20 degrees. Raise natin yun sa 3 using the De Moivre's formula. So that should give you 2 cube bar angle of 3 times 120 degrees. That is yung shorthand notation ng De Moivre's formula given here. Medyo mahaba lang yung binigay kong solution sa inyo. Pero this one is actually the same as this one. Okay? Now, what is 8? Bar angle 360 degrees in rectangular form. 360 na to, ha? So, nasan yung angle na yan? Kung nandito ako magsisimula, nasan yung 360? What is 8 bar angle 360?
Yes, sir.
Diyan din, di ba? So,
Opo.
basically, 8.
Yes po, sir.
Okay, tama tayo. That negative 1 plus j square root of 3 cube would actually give you 8. Right? How about this? Is negative 1 minus j cube root of square root of 3 raised to 3, is it actually equal to 8? What is this one in polar form?
Negative lang po yung angle.
That's 2 bar angle negative 120 degrees. Correct? And then if you actually raise this to 3, that should give you 2 raised to 3 bar angle of negative 360 degrees. And again, negative 360 degrees is same thing as this one. Okay? So still, this should give you 8. So ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, that there are 3 numbers, this one, and this one, that when you actually raise them to 3, that should give you 8 as an answer. Yan yung sagot natin dun sa x cubed equals 8. And sure, we were able to find the first one very easy, that is 2. Pero these other two, these two complex numbers, can actually be found using this one. And in fact, kahit naman yung una, this 2, okay, this first one, can actually be found using this De Moivre's formula. But for finding roots. Okay, is this clear? questions so far? Walang questions? Okay. Now here's the thing that I would like you to notice. Wait lang. Okay. Ito yung tatlong sagot natin, no? We have the following as our roots. Okay. So yung first root natin is ito. Yung second root natin, okay. So the first root is at 2. Okay. The second root in polar form, that's 2 bar angle 120 degrees. Okay. And the third root is at 2 bar angle negative 120 degrees. Okay. If you actually plot them, okay, in a coordinate axis, okay, if you actually plot this, okay, the first one, itong first one is here. Because that's 2 bar angle 0. Okay? The second one is this one. So, which means 120 degrees is somewhere here. Okay? Yung 120 degrees itutukoy natin is ito. Okay? And then the length of this is 2. Again, this is 2. Okay. The third one is from here, we measure 120 degrees. So, more or less, nandito siya. Okay. So, this is 120 degrees also. Okay. But negative because we measure it in a clockwise sense. And then the length of this is 2. Okay. Here's the thing. What can we notice about the separation of angle in between? Okay. Between the roots. Okay. Ito yung mga roots niya, no? Ito, this is your x1, this is your x2, this is your x3. So obviously, x1 and x2 is separated by 120 degrees. Okay? x1 and x3 is also obviously separated by 120 degrees. Question. How large do you think this angle is?
$120.
120 rin. 120 degrees. So, as you can see, all the roots are separated by 120 degrees. Okay. Ano yung significance ng 120 degrees na to? Ano yung n nyo? in our problem, what is our n?
0.
Ano yung n natin?
3. 3 po.
3.
Here,
3 po.
okay. Now, how much angle do we have if we actually circle this entire coordinate system or coordinate plane? Gaano kalaking angle meron tayo pag na-circle natin siya?
360. 360.
Okay. That 120 is actually 360 divided by 3. Okay? Here's the thing, here's the idea. If you actually have n roots, okay, for a certain problem, okay, each of the roots would be separated by 360 divided by n. This is the angle of separation between roots. Yan. That would be your angle of separation between the roots. So if you actually, kung alam niyo to, yung idea na to, okay, if you actually look at this idea, hindi niyo kailangan iulit-ulitin tong process na to. Because if you're actually able to locate the first root, okay, then you can just add this much angle dun sa first root para makuha niyo yung mga succeeding roots. Okay? Again, you would be able to get if you were able to get the first root, the location of the first root, then all you have to do is to add this much angle in order to get the succeeding roots. Now, I won't demonstrate you kung paano niyo siya magagamit. But if I give you the assignment, I would like you to try it out. First, try niyo siya using this standard solution na ginagawa natin. And then try it if I just actually add this much angle. Okay, for you to be able to kasi kung titingnan niyo to, medyo medyo if you would be writing this one, medyo madaming sulutin ito. Okay? But again, if you are able to make sense out of what is this formula, what does this formula means geometrically, okay, then di nyo naman kailangan talaga tandaan. Again, there is this thing na may mga times that you don't really have to remember the formula. But rather, you need just to remember how they are interpreted geometrically. Okay? Is that clear? Alright, again, I would like you to explore this idea. The separation, the angle of separation between the roots is this one. Is this much. Okay? Now let us proceed. Okay. So we are now on the exponential form of your complex numbers. Okay. And then from there, we will be able to derive yung how do you evaluate the functions, trigonometric and hyperbolic functions, logarithmic and general power, given that we know the exponential form. Okay, but the one thing that you have to remember is that this one. So we write now the exponential form in this manner. Okay, so you have z equals RE raised to j theta. Yung R, okay, R and theta are the same as how they were able to obtain in the polar form. Kung paano natin kinukuha yung R at saka theta sa polar form, ganun din natin siya kukunin. The difference is that theta here should now be strictly in radians. Okay? Is that clear? Kung sa polar form, okay, in the polar form, we allow your angle to be in degrees or radians. Kumbaga, may option kayo dun. In the exponential form, you don't have much of that option. So we strictly use radians for your angle or for your argument. Okay? So, ayun, that is one thing that you have to remember here. When you are writing your number, your complex number, in exponential form, the angle should be in radians. But then again, how you obtain R, how do you obtain theta, is how you obtain them in polar form. Ganun din yung interpretation niya. Okay? Is that clear? Okay. Now, again, in from rectangular form to polar form, we write your number as R cosine theta plus J sine theta. Okay? That is in polar form. Okay? And take note that if we are referring to the same number, this can also be written as R a raised to J theta. So that as we can see, we have this equivalence. Okay, we have the following. Provided that theta again is in radians, provided that theta is in radians. Okay? Is that clear? Now, this equivalence, okay, is what we call the Oiller's formula. Okay? Pronounced as Euler, not Euler. It's Euler. So this is called the Euler's formula. Okay? Is that clear? So we have here, let us write it here. Euler's formula as e raised to j theta equals cosine of theta plus j sine of theta. Okay? Now, the conjugate, okay, we know the conjugate, right? Alam natin yung conjugate. Yung conjugate ng cosine theta plus j sine theta is actually cosine theta minus j sine theta. Okay? So ito tsaka ito magka-conjugate to. In exponential form, that conjugate is written as e raised to negative j theta. Okay? So kung ito yung conjugate sa polar form, if this is the conjugate in polar form, this is the conjugate, these are conjugates in exponential forms. Is that clear? Now, what happens if I add these two? If I add these two equations, what would happen? So, since ito, pag inad ko itong j sine theta at negative j sine theta, this becomes 0. Is that correct? Okay. Now, what is cosine theta plus cosine theta? What is cosine theta plus cosine theta?
2 cos,
That's 2
2
cosine.
cos theta po.
Okay. And then, that's the left side. I mean the right side. The left side, since magkaiba ito ng exponent, we cannot add them directly. Okay? So, we just have to leave it as e raised to j theta plus e raised to negative j theta. And then, solving this for cosine theta, this equation, if we solve that for cosine theta, that should give us what? That should give us, isolate na lang yung cosine theta dito.
Over 2 po.
That should be over 3 na rin. That should be, again,
Yung EJ theta po. EJ theta plus E negative
e raised to
plus E negative raised to negative J theta po. Over 2 po.
divided by 2. So that is what cosine theta is equivalent to in exponential form. Okay? That is what cosine theta in complex exponential form. Okay? And what you are seeing here is actually how we translate your real trigonometric function into a complex exponential function, or the equivalence between a real trigonometric function towards a complex exponential function. And tatandaan natin that there is a relationship between trigonometric functions and exponential functions. Yun nga lang, yung transition nila is using complex numbers. In the same manner, ito, inad ko, if I actually do that operation, if I actually do this on these two equations, okay, and then instead of actually adding them, I'll subtract them. Okay? Ito naman ang magsisiro ngayon. And what I would have is e raised to j theta minus e raised to negative j theta equals 2j2 sine theta, and therefore your sine theta equals e raised to j theta minus e raised to negative j theta divided by it's actually 2j or j2, okay, or 2i. So this now converts your sine, okay, this now converts your sine, real trigonometric sine function into a complex exponential function. Okay? So ito yung dalawang formula na yan. This one and this one. Now, are you familiar with hyperbolic functions? Familiar ba kayo sa hyperbolic functions? Or is this the first time na maririnig niyo siya?
Narinig na po.
Narinig niyo na. Saan niyo siya una nagamit?
Conic section po.
Conic section. Baka nito ko nyo hyperbola, ha? Meron ba kayong specific formula that uses hyperbolic functions? medyo iba ang hyperbola sa hyperbolic functions. Baka yung naalala nyo yung ganito. Wait lang. Baka ito yung naalala nyo yung hyperbola. Tama ba? Kasi yan, conic section yan. When you say hyperbolic functions, ito, yung ganito. Hyperbolic cosine z, tsaka hyperbolic sine z. Yan, nabasa nyo na ba yan somewhere? Or napag-aralan nyo na siya somewhere?
Sa integral po, sir.
Sa integral. Kasi meron kayong ano nito, no? Integration of
Hyperbolic.
hyperbolic functions. Yeah, okay. So, pero wala pa kayong specific na application nito. Tama ba?
Wala po, sir.
Wala pa. Okay, bibigyan ko ng isang specific na application. Pero medyo nakalimutan ko na rin yung formula. Pero isa to sa mga this is one of the things or one of the applications that we ECEs apply these formulas, this hyperbolic function formulas. Alam niyo yung problem of meron kayong you have a poster, tapos at some point, say for example, X meters after, okay, meron kayong another post, and then you would have to place a cable, okay, in between these two, and the cable actually sags because of its own weight. Siguro nakikita niyo naman 'to lagi sa kalsada. Okay. You have two posts, and then you have a cable running in between the two posts. Say this cable is an electrical wire, o kaya pwede rin niyang telephone wire. And that is why that one has a profound application in our case, because basically we are naglalagay tayo ng cable for telephone wire. Okay. The equation governing this we call this a catenary. Okay. Kung yung meters na yan, kung layo na yan is about mga 10-20 meters lang, hindi masyadong significant yung catenary problem dito. But if this is say something 1 kilometer or 2 kilometer, and then the weight of your cable is actually more than, say for example, 5 to 10 kilograms, and then this problem is actually a catenary problem. Okay, and this catenary problem is actually governed by hyperbolic cosine function. Okay, hyperbolic cosine function siya of the distance. So kumbaga, yung points na to, these points, how low they will be with respect to this starting point is dependent on how far this point from here. Right? And that dependence is dictated by this hyperbolic function. Okay, so that's one application. Okay. If you actually go through with other applications pa, marami pang pinag-apply nito sa ECE. Okay, so you'll see that siguro pagka nagkaroon na tayo ng mga problems. Okay, later on. Okay. But anyway, ang hyperbolic functions are basically functions. Okay. These hyperbolic functions are basically functions that are trigonometric siya in form, but actually exponential siya in principle. Okay? Which means yung mga properties niya, okay, follows that of the trigonometric functions. Halimbawa, may property ito yung hyperbolic function ninyo, that is similar to cosine square theta plus sine square theta equals 1. Meron siyang property na kapareho nito. That is hyperbolic cosine square of z. I think this is minus, kung tama yung pagkakalala ko. Minus hyperbolic sine square of z is actually equal to 1. Similar, not quite the same, but similar. Okay? And hindi lang ito yung property na similar sila. Okay, pati yung double angle formulas ng trigonometric function ninyo, pati yung half angle formulas, actually these functions have those similar forms. Okay, so that is why they are patterned after your trigonometric functions. Pero again, these hyperbolic functions are not really trigonometric functions, but they are rather hyperbolic functions. Okay? So, I'll discuss this further sa next meeting natin. I'll discuss this further in our next meeting. Kasi 4 minutes na lang yun natin. Okay? And then, ayun, just wait for some announcements na gagawin ko over the next few days para makahabol tayo with it. And also an announcement of when your first mga homeworks nyo pa rin. Okay, so medyo pasensya na kayo, medyo nadidelay ako sa mga mini. Nagkakaproblema lang ako sa ilang mga bagay. Okay, but anyway, we'll continue this on Friday. Okay. And then also on Sunday kasi, that would be our schedule of may schedule tayo ng sa Sunday ng makeup class sa Sunday. So I'll see if we will have a synchronous meeting instead of an asynchronous learning. Okay, para mas makahabol pa tayo. Okay? So we'll continue this on Friday. I hope to see you by then. Okay? May questions ba? So far?
Wala pa naman po.
Okay, wala pa naman. Okay, so sige, I'll see you on Friday. Okay? Kindly leave the meeting na lang. And thank you for attending today's meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you po,
Thank you
sir.
po, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you po.
Thank you po, sir.
Thank you po.
Thank you po.